All right, check. All right, good evening, everybody. I've got about 7:04. We're running late, so sorry about that. I'm Dan Wilkinson, the commander of Post 370. Welcome to the American Legion in Overland Park for another great fish event. Welcome. Hey, if you're not a member yet of the American Legion, please see me or one of our officers in the room, and we're going to help you out. All right? We got the Legion, we got the Auxiliary, the Sons of the American Legion, and the Riders. So I guarantee you everybody in here fits into one of those categories. So come see us. We got a Reach Across America meeting going on next door. That's coming up on the 17th of December. I don't have much more information than that. They're going to be sending more details out over the next couple weeks. So just make a note of that. It's a great event, great family event. Please bring your kids. Remember, honor, and teach. So that's pretty much all I got to say on that. Hey, we got a lot of events going on at the American Legion and also F.I.S.H. So please follow us on Facebook, and we're pretty good about keeping that up to date. All right? At this time, I'm going to invite Chaplain Chase up here to give the opening prayer.
Thanks, Dan. Please join me in prayer. Our dear, great, magnificent Heavenly Father, creator of all the world, who was willing to step down and walk among us, we thank you for loving us and for bringing us here together. We're grateful for the sacrifice of those who have worn the nation's uniform to defend our liberties, for those who have served alongside of them. Even more grateful for the sacrifice of your Son, Jesus Christ, to give us eternal hope. We pray tonight that as we share in the bonds of service, that we are an encouragement to each other, and that our words and our deeds to each other would be glorifying in your sight, be pleasing in your sight, and edifying to each other. In the name of Jesus I pray. Amen.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. Tree, I know we're live. Where do you want me? Here? Okay. So, if this is your first time, let me see a show of hands. Oh, yeah. I know we have some guests. Senator Mike Thompson's in the house. Over here, there he is. Navy veteran. Hey, we got my buddy Art over here, first time visiting, West Point grad. Art. Lieutenant Colonel Zetzman, who we met on Saturday, a Marine at a Marine Corps ball. You talk about trouble. But, of course, he didn't take the cake on Saturday night. Mr. Trouble himself is in the house. Front row, Doc Putska. There he is. Nothing but trouble. And since we're live, we have a friend. So many of our friends, so many fish, have moved out to the glorious state of Florida, and for good reason. It's beautiful unless you have things coming through like Ian and Nicole. My son-in-law's name, Ian, he needs to change it, right, hon? And then our middle daughter is a Nicole, and she was a hurricane. But anyway, yeah, it's a beautiful place, but watching right now, I know, is our buddy Dwayne Davis. So Dwayne, happy birthday to you, buddy. We miss you. So, like was spoken, there is a lot going on tonight. I believe Senator Thompson had something he wanted to say. So come on up and say it. And by the way, while he's doing that, if you're a veteran and you have not received a ticket, can you please raise your hand? If you're a vet and didn't get a ticket, in the back. We need a ticket in the back. All right, Senator.
Thank you, Paul. I just wanted to say I'm very honored to be here tonight, but one of the reasons I came, and I was supposed to speak and when it had the election, there was a little confusion, by the way. There's a Mike Thompson who ran for the House. Mike won. He looks like me. We're about the same age. So everybody in Bonner Springs voted for him because they thought they were voting for me. So anyhow, but there's going to be two of us. One, I'm in the Senate, he'll be in the House, and our districts overlap. So there's some people out in Lake Quivira that'll have Mike Thompson as their senator and as their House member. So you talk about confusion right there. But the reason I'm here tonight is I want to thank Paul and F.I.S.H. and what he did for my family. My wife's oldest brother was in Vietnam. He served in 1965 to 1969 in the Marines, fought in some of the toughest fighting there, and like so many of the Vietnam veterans, got involved in drugs, and about 15, 20 years ago just disappeared. We didn't know where he was until we got a call just, maybe only a month ago or so, wasn't it, Paul? And somehow the hospital over in Columbia, Missouri, where he was dying, got a hold of a family member and then got a hold of my wife and her brother. And so one of my wife's biggest fears was that her older brother would die alone as a homeless Vietnam vet. And so we were able to go see him just before he passed. He'd been a troubled guy. I mean, just like a lot of these guys that were homeless and had drug problems. And of course, he had nothing. I mean, he had no paperwork, no nothing. So Paul helped me. We tracked down his DD-214. We got an urn for him. We got the flags. We got the military honors so he could be buried with honors. And I tell you what, this man and F.I.S.H. and everything the organization does made a huge difference to my wife's family, to the entire family. And so it's good to know there are organizations out here that are doing that kind of selfless work behind the scenes. And I just wanted to pay tribute to Paul. And you make a lot of difference in a lot of lives. And you wouldn't think that, some homeless vet like that. But we had the taps and we had the honor guard and everything else. And the funeral turned out to be small but pretty good. So thank you to Paul, and thank you for just a few minutes of your time.
I'd be remiss in saying a belated Happy Veterans Day to everybody. So if you're a veteran, raise your hand, please. I know there's a lot of civilians here. Thank you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We're able to be in a place like this tonight because of the service and the sacrifice that each and every one of you have made. And I see Kira over there. Thank you, Kira. We can never forget what you guys have done. All right. I have another Vietnam vet here. I told him I was going to bring him up last, but I'm going to bring him up now and get this done because he's a pretty exciting guy. He's a National Veteran Service Officer that actually was a speaker many, many, many years ago. You're like speaker number 10. This is F.I.S.H. Speaker Series number 58. Well, 58, okay? Jack Alley. Stand up, Jack. While you're standing, he is standing. Come on up, Jack. Come on up. If you don't know Jack Alley, you don't know Jack. Seriously, you don't know Jack. This guy, men and women that decades ago had given up on trying to get any benefits whatsoever, because it'd been decades. I introduced him to Jack, and Jack is like a little pit bull. He is like, you're like a honey badger, if you heard that term. He's a honey badger. So I want Jack to come up and say a few words, and I think you have something else for us.
Thank you. As Paul said, basically I'm a VSO, but I'm a volunteer VSO. I don't get paid a dime for what I do. I took on the federal government, filing my claim for PTS for 48 years. I was denied 18 times, and through the assistance of a late senator who is no longer in office and what have you, they reevaluated my claim, and with the help of an actual paid VSO at the VA hospital in Kansas City, within 27 months of applying for that claim, I received my 100% disabled PTS. And if there's anybody in here who understands what that means, it really can change your life. The VA hospital that I work with, which is on Linwood, I'm sure many of you go there. Maybe many of you may have had some good experiences, maybe you haven't had such great experiences. But the management has changed. I was there today, and in commemoration to helping all of the vets and also the vet spouses, I'm kind of an honorary spokesman for a restaurant called Texas Roadhouse. And we passed out over 800 meals today, meal vouchers at the VA hospital. And I called Paul this afternoon and I said, hey, listen, are you having your meeting tonight? He goes, yeah. And I said, well, do you mind if I show up? Because I have a voucher for each and every one of you here for a meal at Texas Roadhouse. Spouses included, because as we all know, if it wasn't for the spouses, our jobs would be a lot more difficult than they are. And on a side note, as a VSO, if you're having a problem with a claim, if you don't understand a certain process, if you're getting the runaround, if you're just frustrated, etc., and you've thrown your hands up, I've got business cards. You can find me before I leave, but I'll be more than happy to try to help you out if I can. I am a one-man operation. I work out of my home, off of my Facebook computer more than anything else, and I'm just here to tell you that if you don't quit, it'll happen. You just got to know who to talk to. So I thank you very much. God bless you guys. And I've got the vouchers in my pocket. I've got about 120 of them. I think that should cover everybody. Okay? All right? Take care.
So when we're done tonight, everybody go see Jack. All right? Go get some Jack. In fact, a little quick story. So several years ago, and I think Tree remembers, a lot of you guys might remember our friend Danielle. Danielle's probably watching right now. Danielle had been in the Army, had an incident in the Army, tripped, had a traumatic brain injury, and was one of those people that had given up. And then she met Jack Alley, and everything turned around. He got her benefits, and as we speak right now, she actually works for the VA in Washington, D.C. So, incredible story, and something that, you know, if you are one of those guys having a situation or just have some questions, talk to Jack. Talk to Jack. All right, so now I feel like we need some walk-on music or something, you know. So, oh yeah, forgive me. I did forget. December 1st, we have our annual Christmas with our troops. If you've not attended before, you want to come to that. You never know who's going to show up, but let's just say that we're going to be honoring about roughly 30 active duty military and some veterans with a very special surprise. One of the things that we don't do is we don't go shopping for our veterans' kids, our military kids. Instead, we do something a little different. We just hand them an envelope so that the parents can go shop for their own children. So that's going to take place December 1st, not a third Thursday, the first Thursday in December, 7 p.m. Come on out, be festive. I know my wife's going to be doing all the decorations. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, all right, that's December 1st. Now, do we have walk-on music or anything? We don't. I know. All right, so let me tell you about our speaker tonight, Walt Schley. Joined the Marine Corps in 1966 in Atlanta, Georgia. He went on to boot camp in Paris Island. It's Paradise Island. And he served 22 months in Vietnam with the 1st Marine Division. In October '69, he was released from active duty and joined the United States Marine Corps Reserves in Marietta, Georgia. He received his warrant officer promotion in 1976. While in the reserves, he worked as a catalog buyer with Sears, Roebuck & Company. In 1986, Sears Catalog Division dissolved, and Walt went back on active duty and served in the Gulf War with the 24th Marines. He also retired in 1998 as a Chief Warrant Officer 5. His MOSs include Adjutant, Infantry Officer, Public Affairs Officer. He was recalled to active duty with Enduring Freedom in 2003. His personal decorations include Purple Heart, Meritorious Service Medal, 2 of them, the Navy Commendation Medal, Navy Achievement Medal with Combat V, 4 of them, Combat Action Ribbon, Navy Presidential Unit Citation, the Vietnamese Cross of Gallantry with POM. After retirement, Walt went on to top Marine Corps High School ROTC in Louisiana. and Missouri for 13 years before retiring in 2011. He's a volunteer public information officer with Sullivan County, Missouri Emergency Management Agency. He's actively involved in a lot of things with the Military Order of Purple Heart, with the Vietnam Veterans of America, the Marine Corps League, the Navy League, Sons of the American Revolution, Sons of the Confederate and Union Veterans, and Collar to Halter Forever Home Sanctuary. He's received several civic awards for volunteerism. He's married to Kathleen Caruso and has 2 adult children, Glenn and Jennifer. And Walt, we are delighted to have you here tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, Walt Schley. We're gonna play his Patriot Films video first.
I'm going to try to cut down on the talking. So.
What I would like the youth of America now, I call them, to know about Vietnam, that we did what our country asked, and we came home. And unfortunately, you know, most kids think we lost a war. We never lost a battle. And it wasn't the military that did it. It was the politicians that brought us home. I was born in December 1947 here in Kansas City, Missouri. And then when I was about 3, we moved to Fort Madison, Iowa. And then moved to Phoenix, Arizona. And then we moved to Atlanta. Did a little bit of high school there. And I quit high school and went in the Marine Corps in 1966. '65 was my big year that I first started hearing about Vietnam and what was going on. And I had 2 brothers that had been in the Marine Corps, and I loved their Eagle, Globe, and Anchor. So I decided I wanted to go in the Marine Corps and do my part. I wanted to go to war and be a Marine at war. I signed up in March of 1966 into the Marine Corps, but I was on the delayed entry program. And so I didn't get to go to boot camp till July of 1966. Sat on a street corner, caught the bus, and went to Parris Island, South Carolina. And of course, at dead of night, we got our heads shaved, and I'm thinking, why did I do this? But I couldn't let my brothers down, and I couldn't have them picking on me that I couldn't make it. Graduated boot camp in September of 1966, and then I went to infantry school at Camp Gagger in North Carolina. Come home on leave, and then I went to personnel school at Camp Del Mar, California. And then I got my first duty station was with 5th Marine Division headquarters at Camp Pendleton, California. And I did about 9 months there. Was a secret and classified clerk there. And then everybody was coming back from Vietnam. You know, you see all the ribbons and the stories. And before a month or so was up, they were requesting orders to go back. I said, well, it can't be that bad there. So I went up to my master sergeant and I said, hey, Top, can I get orders? Oh, no problem. And I left there in November of 1967, went to Okinawa, and we had more training, more administrative stuff to do. And then I landed in Da Nang Christmas Eve of 1967. And so that next morning, I was told I was going to go to Camp Brooks, and that's where 7th Motor Transport Battalion was. They dropped me off at 7th Motor Transport Battalion, 1st Marine Division, and they were cooking steaks and drinking beer. And I said, how bad can that be, you know? Until I got Fire Watch. Well, they call it Rocket Watch. They said, well, all you do is you look at the sky, and if you see anything red, yell out rockets. So here's my first night in Vietnam, and I'm looking up the sky, and sure enough, I see red tails. And so I go in the first hooch, and I yell rockets. Next thing I know, I have boot marks all over my face and chest. And I learned after that, you get in the bunker first, and then yell rockets. They were 122 rockets coming in. You don't know where they're going to land. They're sort of like fireworks. They aim them at it, but they don't know a precise place where they're going to fall. Camp Brooks is where I was from December of '67 to November of '68 for 11 months, I believe it was. And then we got orders to go to Quang Tri Combat Base, and that's where I spent my last 11 months, was at Quang Tri Combat Base. My main job was I was an administrative chief for first H&S Company, and then I went to Bravo Company. But being a Marine, that's not your only duty. And we were always short of truck drivers, we were always short of, you know, Jeep drivers, machine gunners for the convoys, because every fourth truck we had a 50 caliber that we would put on it for the convoys. We call them gun trucks. Our mainstay for our trucks was, we call it a 2.5 ton, and we could put supplies in there, we could put troops on it. We carried bladders of fuel, weapons to different places, Hill 155, Anwa. We would also do convoys up to Fubai and some others, but Hai Vong Pass was where the hills were, and I'd either be a trail driver or I'd be a machine gunner. And we get hit every once in a while, but it was like hit and run. They just fire off some shots, try to stop a truck, you know, and if they stopped the truck, then they would make more contact, but otherwise they were out of there, you know. Sometimes I was riding security with a rifle. Other times I would man the 50 caliber machine gun, or I'd be an M60 machine gunner on the back of a wrecker. That was usually at the rear of the convoy. I was doing security that day, and what we call security is you got your rifle and several other people on a truck, and you're just watching both sides and your rear, make sure you're not going to be attacked by anybody or a hand grenade or whatever. We were at Liberty Bridge. We're taking supplies down to Anwa Combat Base, but that was our area to just get some rest and then do our John Wayne pictures. Tet Offensive was, and Tet is every year, it's a Vietnamese holiday, but the Tet that I remember is Tet of '68, and right at the end of January, Tet broke out. The places hit all up and down South Vietnam, so we didn't know what was going on. And then 7th Motors, 1st Motors, 11th Motors, we were transporting the 1st and 5th Marines up there as fast as we could, turn around, get more, and get them up to Way City. The night that I got wounded, we just got back from a convoy. It was around 2200 on 31st of August, 1969, and lights were being turned out, and of course we were in our skivvies and flak jackets, and anyway, and all of a sudden, you know, we heard artillery, mortar, and rocket fire on the other side of the base. So I was the platoon sergeant for our headquarters element, and so we got everybody in the bunkers, or the holes we called them, and then I started turning out lights that had been left on. So I got up to one hooch, and the light was jury rigged. I didn't know how to turn it off. All of a sudden I could hear the rounds landing nearer to me, and so I said, it's time to get in the bunker. So I come out the hooch, and all of a sudden I hear the first sergeant yell down, you know, get those blankety blank lights out. So I went back in, and I took a swat at it, knocked it out, but that's all I remember for a while. After I swatted the light, that's when I heard an explosion, and saw stars, and a wall locker fell on top of me, and later on I realized it had knocked out some of my teeth also. I remember crawling out and going into the bunker, feeling, you know, something wet, and it turned out to be blood in that. A couple days later I found out that there were 13 of us wounded and 2 were killed by that rocket attack in our area. After I came to and crawled into the bunker, and they finally ceased fire, we could turn on a flashlight, and I had blood from head to toe, but You still don't know what your injuries are. So, but I knew I had been hit in the arm for sure, and they threw me in the back of a Jeep, and we did a bumpy ride about 6 miles north to Dong Ha, and went to the third map hospital up there. I was basically a walking wounded, and so the doctor says, "Hey, you ain't got nothing wrong with you." And bandaged up my arm and pulled out what shrapnel I had in my rear end, and said, "You're going back to your unit." My tour in Vietnam, was only 6 months because of my contract, but I ended up a total, after extending it each time, a total of 22 months in Vietnam. I left Vietnam 9 days after I got wounded, and I landed at El Toro Marine Corps Air Station. So that's when I decided to get out. And October 12th of 1969, I was released from active duty. And then I went in the reserves after I got back to Atlanta. I ended up liking it, especially after I picked up a warrant officer. And I said, well, I'm going to make it a career.
Less than a week ago, in the early morning hours of August 2nd, Iraqi armed forces, without provocation or warning, invaded a peaceful Kuwait.
During the Gulf War, of course, we landed at Al Jabal, and I was sent to assist with a 3rd Battalion, 24th Marines and Infantry Regiment. I was only there for 3 months. The ground war started, and it was over in 3 days. And we took prisoners and that, and housed them, so to speak. And then I was sent home in March 29th of 1991. I decided, well, it's time to retire. So I retired in 1998 in September. And then following my retirement from the active duty Marine Corps, then I taught at 3 different JRTC high schools. I got married when I was 23. 3 years later, I had my son Glenn, and then I remarried just before the Gulf War, and turns out we were mostly friends. So it took me a while on my journey to meet my current wife, Kathleen. We were both at the United Way, and we got married 5 months later. We've been married 25 years now. I have a grandson, Jake. He's 15 years old, straight A student. I joined the military order of the Purple Heart 30 years ago, and it was primarily, to be with your brothers, so to speak, that suffered the same thing you did, even though we all had different types of wounds. And people had lost legs or got the same medal. People died and got the same medal that I got as a walking wounded. But I didn't really do much with them until 2016. It interested me when they started talking about Purple Heart cities and Purple Heart counties. To me, it's a way to honor their citizens in their counties or in their cities, and that really is my passion now. The thing I'm most proud of is that I joined the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps meant everything to me. It's my education, my life, pride in my country, and I hope I gave that to my son, Glenn, and my grandson.
Sir Walt Schley.
Thank you, Paul. I look taller up here, by the way, so. One thing I want to talk about a little bit is education. You heard in there that I quit high school and I went in the Marine Corps, and I did. I wanted to go to war and that, but the reason I quit high school, I came down with scarlet fever when I was a junior. And I said, I'm not going to try to finish it with everybody being seniors and my buds. And but I wanted to go in the Marine Corps bad. I always wanted to travel. So I got at Camp Pendleton. I had a great Master Sergeant, Samasco, and he was talking about education one day, and I said something wrong. I don't know what it was. Next thing I know, his hand's on my throat, and I'm against the bulkhead. And he said, "You will get an education." And he marched me down to get my GED signed up for. And then, of course, the Marine Corps, like I said, done a lot of great things for me. And I got my bachelor's, my master's because of the Marine Corps. So I really appreciate that. And I want to talk a little bit about Kira there. We had her in our Veterans Day parade up in Fort Leavenworth. She's in this real nice 64 Corvette. And she's doing her Queen Wave. And then at the end, I asked her, I said, "Hey, what'd they say to you?" And said, "Nothing. They just said, nice car." So that's good. Boot camp, anybody who's been in the Marine Corps, you know what it's like. So, you know, that street corner thing, then you're getting your hair cut, and you wonder why I did this. But I don't want to go into all that, but I did get a good assignment at mess duty. I was at the Women Marine Battalion at Parris Island. And we couldn't see the female Marines, but we could see their hands when they slid the trays in with the food. And you said, "Oh, nice hands." You know, so that's my memory of Women Marines at Parris Island. So, but yeah, Camp Pendleton was a great assignment. I loved it. Secret classified files, and a lot of good mentors there. And like I said, those guys were coming back from Vietnam, mostly grunts, and they couldn't stand the spit and polish and give me orders back. So I said, "It can't be that bad there." So I got my orders. And like I said, I turned 20 in Okinawa, and then, of course, being in Vietnam. And you saw me in a truck. That's probably the last time I was in a truck driving, after they found out I couldn't back up a trailer. So, and then I remember asking my first sergeant, "What are all these sandbags in the truck?" So, "Well, that's to soak up your blood." And I said, "Well, that's not a good job, is it?" But had a good time, you know, always going out and doing Marine Corps things, which you always love. And, you know, being on the gun or something, it was really neat. And I wasn't a ground pounder. I didn't get to see hand-to-hand combat and that. But we did have a lot of different things going on that I was very proud of. So, but the main thing is we got ammunition, we got food, we got fuel bladders, you know, full to the sites, medical supplies, and all that. The helicopters took in the immediate stuff like ammunition, medical supplies, and that, and we brought up the other stuff for them. So I can't really say how much I really appreciated all those mechanics that would work all night long, get our trucks out there, change out the windshields with the bullet holes and stuff, and those guys were just outstanding people, and I can't say enough about them. You probably saw one of the hooches where I'm standing there by the time. Well, we had the Army on the other side of the base, and we had to ask permission to shoot. They didn't. So what you didn't see was all the holes in the roof there. So yeah, that was from our friends, the United States Army. So appreciate that. Not much really to say. The Tet Offensive was something else, and I've always wondered about Doc Puska, if he was one of the people that rode up on our truck or with 9th Motors or 1st Motors. But, you know, it was just something, we knew something bad was happening. We didn't know exactly what, but we had our orders to get up there. And the night before was the only time we were told we could shoot anything that crossed the bridge at Namel Village. And, of course, there was a lot of fireworks going on that night. So, but thank you, Doc, for everything you've done. I appreciate it. And we got Doc O'Connor in the back, so another corpsman. A great story he has. But Vietnam was, you know, 22 months there. Appreciate everything. But when I got wounded that night, and that's when I said, "Well, God's trying to tell you to go home." And because I was about ready to sign extension papers the next day. I always wanted to be 6'4" like John Wayne. And after I went back 3 or 4 days later, right above where my head was a big hole. So I never complained about being short after that. So, and then on the way home, I read one of the best books I ever had was Coffee, Tea, or Me. I don't know if anybody's ever read that, but it was a bunch of stewardesses. At that time, really great looking stewardesses. And they said, everybody thinks we're taken. So nobody asked her out. So after that, I decided any woman I was going to ask out. So I got a lot of no's, to tell you the truth. PTSD. I never thought I had that. I guess after 3 wives, I should have learned I had PTSD. And but one thing, they all 3 of them came up and said, "You love the Marine Corps more than me." Well, yeah. And I think that might have been the end of that. Kathleen, I met in New Orleans at United Way, just a fantastic lady. And I said, "I'm going to go ahead and retire." And that saved that marriage. So now it's 27 years. So it was very neat, but great lady. Thank you. Then, of course, I was working at Sears after I got back from Vietnam. I got out and went in the reserves, and I was with the Air Wing, swinging with them, really great unit at Naval Air Station Atlanta. And then I picked up warrant. Excuse me. I don't know what it's like in the Army of that, but we had to find a billet once you become an officer. So the only billet over was the infantry platoon commander. Well, Marine Corps, you know that we're restricted officers as a warrant officer, and you can't go to that billet. Well, the reserves is a different story. So I did my 3 years as a platoon commander, and my highlight was an ambush one time. We were setting up at Fort Carson, Colorado, and I hear rocks hitting my helmet. And I look over and I said, "Sergeant Bates, what the hell are you doing?" He said, "Sir, you're snoring. You're going to give away our position." So that was a downfall of my infantry days. But it was really good. I served with a lot of great people. Sears Roebuck and Company was the fantastic place to work. I was started on the docks and went up to be a catalog order buyer. In '86, it went away. What am I going to do? And then the Marine Corps said, "Well, we need reserve warrant officers on active duty." They called it a full-time support program. So I ended up here with 24th Marines. Boy, that was a big change from the Air Wing. But it was a great unit. It always been a great unit. And then the Gulf War happened. And I can't lie too much about the Gulf War because I got Al over here that was in Al Jabel with me. But the main 24th Marines went out to Camp Pendleton, and my wife was a member of that unit. And I'm with 324, and we go over to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. We all end up in the same camp in Al Jabal, so that's a pretty neat thing. But Al, yeah, I won't talk about pizza or anything. So, but the thing, one of the funny stories I had there, I had to go up north after the oil fires and that, because our unit were moving up, taking prisoners and guarding the prisoners, and I had to have a driver. So I called this one young Lance Corporal in. I said, "You're going to be my driver." He said, "Sir, why me?" And I said, "Well, you got a Humvee license, and you've been shot at before." And he said, "Sir, I've never been shot at before." And of course, I look at his SRB, his service record book. I said, "Don't give me that blankety blank." I said, "Right here, you're from East St. Louis." "Oh, I thought you were talking about the military." But he was a good kid and come home. Yeah, he didn't get shot at. But the Gulf War was short and sweet. But one thing I really admire our Marines, reservists that were at Camp Lejeune, and probably the same thing at Camp Pendleton with Al. Everybody knew at that time there was 500,000 of the bad guys, 500,000 of us, good guys. There's going to be a bloodbath. Well, we didn't know that, they were shoeless, or clothing was horrible. They were starving. They were forced in the Army, most of them, and didn't want to be there. So it was an easy war for us. But you come home, but I still admire all those Marines that went anyway, the reservists. So, and I'll fast forward a little bit. Excuse me. During Operation Enduring Freedom and that, I was at Camp Lejeune, and I was processing individual ready reserves going over. And they were on individual orders. So I had this staff sergeant come in one day, excuse me, and he said, "Sir, I want to go kill Iraqis. Can you go with me?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" And we all wanted to kill Iraqis, but, and he said, "But I got to go." got to go. And I said, what's your name? And I'll put you on a list. And it turned out to be Staff Sergeant Carnes. And the captain that was in the same office as I was overheard the conversation, and he was from New York City. It turns out Carnes had been a Marine, had been in the reserves, but was off contract. So he ends up hearing about the World Trade Center, which he used to work in. He went home, and got his uniform on, went and got a haircut, went down to the World Trade Center. Excuse me. And he saw some Marines out there and says, hey, you're going to work with me. So they went down, and you might have seen it in some films and that, but him and some other Marines rescued a couple of the transit police officers down there. And so finally I said, ooh, this is a great thing, being a public affairs officer too. I said, I'll call headquarters of the Marine Corps. We'll have a great story, especially if he goes over and kills some Iraqis. But it turned out he wasn't an IRR guy. He was a selected Marine reservist, and they went to Okinawa. So, but later on I heard he did get to go over and kill some. But that's basically my story. I talked to Sean Wynn. I really want to thank Sean. I said, why do you want to do a documentary on me? You know, I don't have a silver star. I don't have a bronze star with a V. You know, I was just one of the guys that did what he was supposed to do, and basically what I wanted to do. And he said, but everybody's got a story, so everybody out there does. And if you don't know each other, try to get to know each other. But I want to thank all the people that served in the armed forces, all the spouses especially, because I know what you put up with 4 times really, and all the people that support us. It's amazing. But any questions? Yes, sir.
Was there any scuttlebutt from command at that time when we obviously won and left that this was not over? Or did we have to wait the subsequent years for the tragedy of 9/11?
Excuse me. There was no scuttlebutt that we heard, but we had our own ideas. This is too early. But, you know, we were fed the story that, you know, they met all the United Nations guidelines, and that's all it was. Of course, everybody was glad to go home, so, but no, we didn't hear anything about the higher officers on that. So, yes, sir.
How did you find the people of Vietnam?
I didn't have that much interaction with them. We did on the convoys, throw them, you know, food off the side of the trucks and stuff, but we weren't really allowed to associate much. If everybody knows what, or heard at Dog Patch, where the guys would like to mingle with the girls, that was off limits to us.
You buy me a drink, I love you, no shit.
Yeah, that's it. And they know Doc well, by the way, so they still have your card. But yeah, the interaction there wasn't, you know, there for us. In fact, they wouldn't let Marines buy alcohol. We go down to Freedom Hill 327 up Da Nang, and we go in, and the Army PFC 18-year-old could go in and buy whatever. You had to be a staff sergeant of the Marine Corps before you could actually buy any alcohol. And so, and back at the base, we all got that 3.2, you know, hot beer, you know, Slits and Mabel Black Label and all that. So, but, yes. Any other questions, or you can keep them short if you want to.
Thank you for your service, sir. As a former Army intelligence sergeant who did 2 tours in Iraq, 1 tour in Afghanistan, my thing is, was there any plans, if we did take out Saddam in 91, to actually control the Iranians in the south and help the Kurds in the north? Because I know the Kurds were our biggest ally, especially after they got chemically blasted by Saddam in '86, same year I was born. But were there any plans? Because as far as I'm tracking, it was all, okay, Saddam can keep them in check and keep the country neutralized, and then until obviously 2003 when we invaded again. But was there any plans, if we did take out Saddam in 91, to actually keep that country in check? Because to me, what it probably would have been best is actually establish a Kurdistan in the north and actually neutralize that area. But I mean, to me, with the Iranians in the south, we wouldn't be able to do so without Saddam being there.
Right.
Yeah. Were there any plans you were aware of?
Nothing that I was aware of. I just knew we had the flyovers and, you know, the coordinates that we would watch for that, but we didn't follow through on that. So I wish I could tell you that was way above my pay grade at the time. So, but I wish we had a plan. You know, the guys that can think a lot, you know, would have planned more. So, any other questions? Yeah. Yes. You know, one of the things you're taught in the Marine Corps is personnel accountability. And so you got to check on whoever, you know, and you count your warm bodies. But one night we had a Scud attack at Al Jabal. And we do the body count after it's over with, and we have one person missing. Who is it? Well, it's that state trooper, you know, from Kansas. Then we find Al. Al, what are you doing? He said, well, I found these concrete bunker with like walls that holds the trailers for the camp. And he said, I figured if God wants to kill everybody, they get the ones with all the people over there. He wouldn't single out me over here. So I think I got it pretty well.
All the sinners.
Oh, okay. So yeah. Well, the other thing too, we had all the pretty girls there too, and they did not want to cut their hair, and they could not fit their gas mask. You know, we only had, I think, one. My wife cut her hair, but I said there's going to be a lot of dead pretty women if we ever get gas. So, but I won't tell about the pizza.
So speaking of hair, I notice you're wearing that really shit hot high and tight right now. But all those pictures from Vietnam, you're a total hairball. What? I mean.
Well, I wasn't going to make it a career. And we had Vietnamese barbers, and I have a picture at home. It's like around like my mother used to do with a bowl. So, but I think I mentioned the bad dental hygiene. I hope I did when I was young. So I got a lot of great false teeth, but do your dental and you got it made. Okay. So anything else, Al, you want to tell me? Mark over here, my uncle taught him how to fly, and his dad was my uncle's best friend. So yes, ma'am.
So what is the difference between the war in Vietnam and the Gulf War when you come back with the community? Do you see?
Back home from
yes.
those? I was lucky. I heard a lot of people say from Vietnam they got spit on and all the other. I landed at El Toro Marine Corps Air Station, and there was nobody there to spit on you. So that I was very fortunate. But the Iraqi war, I couldn't believe when I got back to St. Louis, the parades and all that. And I had to stand back behind a window and watch all that going on, because I was just amazed how great the people in St. Louis were treating 324. But in Vietnam, I didn't think about no parade. I just wanted to get home, get a hamburger and a milkshake. And that was my reward. So. Okay. Anybody else? All right. Oh. What was it? I can't remember the exact title, but Fly Me on a Jet Plane, or Doc can remember all that. But yeah, we wanted to get back to what we call the world. So. Anything? All right.
Well, you had a bunch of pictures up there. Oh. You want to talk about the photographs that were up there? Dan, can you run through them?
I had 1 minute instruction here. You ready? Yeah. Let's see if I do it right. You saw that one. Liberty Bridge was blown up by whoever side you want to hear from. We blew it up, or the NVA blew it up, or the Viet Cong. But yeah, we would have to stop because we had no way to get the supplies across the river except for barge or helicopters, loading the net. So that was our downtime. And again, our John Wayne pictures. And I know Glenn used to have a grease gun, so he can talk about that. This is in the office. You can't see the holes in the roof, but I was told at boot camp I was going to be a Remington Raider. So I thought, well, this is going to be a neat thing. I'm part of a special unit. And then they sent me down behind a typewriter, said Remington on it. So on my headstone at the bottom is going to have Remington Raider on it. So let everybody confused about that. On top of a 50 cal, that's what it looks like. And if you've seen the truck, the thing is when you get ambushed and you start shooting, you're not only behind, you're on the door standing, you're on the hood standing, you're shooting everywhere. And one thing I loved about the 50 caliber, you either hit them, they died immediately, or they were going to die. So, High Vong Pass, you had to go up around the hills. That's where we would get hit a lot, hit and run. Unless they damaged the truck, and then they would, go all up to get us. The night I got wounded, this is the poor water bull. It got hit pretty bad. That's the hooch I was in. And a little bit further back, I don't have it here, but the hole in the roof. So, but yeah, the first sergeant, I was more afraid of him than I was the enemy. So, 4th Logistic Command, 7th Motor was 1st Marine Division. We were attached to 4th Logistic Command, and then when we went up to Crank 3, we were attached to the 3rd Marine Division. One of the holes that a rocket made. That's what a good hooch looks like. One of the convoys, very few times we had jets come in or anything to help us. 9th Marines on this convoy, Thomas Creek, young Lance Corporal of the 9th Marines, he threw himself on a hand grenade and ended up receiving the Medal of Honor. He didn't make it. And like I said, I have a low-level Navy Achievement Medal with a Combat V, but it's very special to me. So no Bronze Star, no Silver Star. And that's when I got home. Gulf War, this is Major Goldsmith at the time, and my adjutant, Gerald in the middle, me on the right. And this is after the war's over with. So. And Ras Al Ghar, beautiful beach. And we had 2 women, Marines, that were with us. And my 18-year-old got a bikini in the mail. You're not wearing that down there with 4,000 Marines. So, and this is our instructor staff that got stationed over in Al Jabal. I didn't take this picture, but what an awesome picture with the oil fires and that. If you've been in the fires over there, you know how cold it can get when it's 100 degrees in Al Jabal and you're heading north and you're getting colder and colder and colder, no sun. But what a beautiful picture with the camels there. And we're done. Thank you all very much. Again, thank you all for your service, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Walt. Well done. Thank you. Can I get a picture? So, Walt, you mentioned, Walt, you mentioned Pretty Girls. Did you ever get to see Bob Hope and the Gold Diggers?
No, I did not. But our Purple Heart chapter, we had a gold digger come to speak, and she lives right here in Kansas City. She was over there in 1970. Now, the only story I have about, we had an Australian group come in, and we got hit that night. And of course, there's one young lady, she has on her tassels on her bra, you know, and the first bunker is a command bunker, and we're in there. And if you've been in combat, you know after a while you get used to with the noises, where they're coming from, and that. But that was her first time under fire, and those tassels were just flying up and down. And I still remember saying, well, that's going to be some officer's girlfriend. So.
Well, the reason I asked, Liz will be our speaker in
she is.
January. And
you'll love Liz.
yes, and she wanted me to tell you hello.
Well, thank you.
So Liz
Appreciate
will
it.
be here as our speaker in January. So Walt, thank you again. We loved hearing your story tonight. Folks,
Thank you.
Walt.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, so